Well, good evening and welcome to Wide Awake News. And to my regular audience, thank you for being patient with me while I took a couple weeks off for the holidays. I truly enjoyed the time spent with friends and family, though I did have a little family crisis that kind of put some bucket of cold water on things. But we persevere. We do the best we can. Anyway, for my first broadcast of the new year, I thought it would be a good idea to have our friend Sterling Allen from PESN.com come by and give us the briefing because, as we start the new year, it's time to reflect on our performance in the previous year and decide where we're going for next year. And I'm kind of hoping we're going to get something of a review of 2012 in the alternative energy arena from Sterling Allen, and perhaps some idea from him as to how he thinks this new year is going to do. In any case, let me bring him on in here. Sterling Allen, how are you doing tonight, sir?
Doing good. Thanks for having me on, Gary.
It's always a pleasure, Sterling. I mean, you are a regular on the Smart Scarecrow show. I mean, what did you do with your Thursday evenings without a Smart Scarecrow show to attend?
I had a little more time to finish my LANR weekly.
Well, there is that. In any case, I'm fascinated by what you might have to tell us, and frankly, I invited you on as a guest with no preconditions, so you take it in any direction you want to go. Like to hear your thoughts, so I'm going to give you full screen, and obviously, as usual, I'll chime in every time something comes about. But what do you got to tell us?
Well, I'm known as a cheerleader of the free energy world. We've run freeenergynews.com, which tracks the best exotic clean energy technologies in process of emerging. Been doing that for almost 11 years now. And boy, if I had my way, these things would have made it to market 11 years ago. They haven't, and we're still months away from market. And so you have to take with a grain of salt my enthusiasm. I still think that we're a few months away from market 11 years later, even though there's a lot of reasons to believe we really are getting closer. And we'll talk about some of those tonight. When I talk about free energy, generally speaking, I'm talking about technologies that harness the will work of nature, where we get energy free for the taking. Not that the devices are free, but the source is free. Solar is free energy. Wind is free energy. Geothermal is free energy. The devices that harness those are various price points, and typically are a lot more expensive than what you would pay for from the grid. However, the quote-unquote exotic technologies that we like to track are not only clean, but they would be economical, no-brainer economical. So rather than being, just barely at the price of grid, we're talking several times cheaper than grid power as some of these technologies come online. At first, the early adopters are going to be paying, approximately the same price. But even some of the early technologies, when they're in the early adopter stage, are going to be cheaper than grid. So that's the kind of stuff we're talking about. I should put a new slogan on the top of our website just to kind of put people on notice of where we're coming from. If it doesn't violate the laws of physics, we're not interested.
Well, let's be fair. Now, technically, a solar panel delivers free energy to me once I make that initial investment in the solar panel. I mean, as long as I've got a good sunny day, I can harvest electricity from the sun. So, I mean, wouldn't a solar panel be a good example of a free energy technology that has more or less become mainstream at this point?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the example that I gave earlier. Solar is one of the free energy genres of the conventional sort. And I actually have a comprehensive listing of the conventional and non-conventional free energy genres. Solar's a genre, wind is a genre, geothermal's a genre, wave energy is a genre, ocean currents is a genre. Each one of those is an entire industry with lots of different variations of how to do it best. There are 24 genres of conventional and 24 genres of unconventional. So there's a lot of really cool stuff out there, and we try and cover it all, but we focus in on those technologies that are going to be closest to market, that are looking most promising. We've heard about, Nikola Tesla wanted to give free energy to the world way back when. The best he could do was AC power and radio before they kind of kicked him out of the block, so to speak, or he got too eccentric for people to pay attention to him. But those kinds of technologies are now inching their way and getting really close. So that's kind of an introduction of where I'm coming from, just so you know.
Well, now you made a lot of predictions during 2012. I mean, I think it's time to go to the confessional with Father Hendershot and tell us just how you did on your predictions for 2012. I mean, weren't you talking about some technologies early in 2012 that you thought might actually be available on the end cap at Walmart by the end of the year?
Not necessarily for Walmart, but they would be available. I thought we'd get at least a couple of technologies would be available for sale by the end of 2012, and I was wrong. That didn't happen. Now, there is one technology that I think arguably could be said is in the marketplace. That's the Andrea Rossi's ECAT technologies, 1 megawatt cold fusion power plant for industrial heater technologies. But that one's very controversial. And
well, yeah, I mean, we have reports that he has actually sold devices and that customers have taken delivery of devices and that these things are in place and actually producing thermal energy in commercial quantities for a very competitive price now. But I don't think I've yet seen a customer come forward, put his hand up and say, yeah, I bought one of those things and man, this is just slick as can be. Have we gotten that validation on the Rossi technology? I mean, frankly, I'm very hopeful about Rossi myself, but we're missing that last key component of a customer testimonial, somebody who's had one of these things in production a little while and is singing its praises. Do we have that yet?
Not yet, but we supposedly we do have customers, but we don't have validation of that from an independent source, so to speak. They're confidential, military, keep it quiet, zip your lips kind of things. But coming in April or March of this year, hopefully there will be a rollout of one of those 1 megawatt plants that they will be able to allow customers and media and scientists to come in, kick the tires, take a look, see it in operation, sees the customers with a smile on his face saying, glad we got one, you ought to get one too, kind of thing.
Yeah, obviously that would kind of make my day. I mean, it's very difficult to get academia to take a look at some of these fringe technologies because, of course, they have their standing within the academic community to protect, and if a lot of your funding's coming from the oil industry or for some other vested interest, it's very difficult for you to stand on a soapbox and spout the praises of something that deviates from where your funding's coming from. But, a customer is a customer, and if somebody's bought one of these things and really, really likes it, you'd hope that he'd be out there bragging about it, which to me is, that's money in the bank as far as I'm concerned. That makes it real.
Yep. And as far as that is concerned, you're going to have to be patient because it hasn't happened yet.
Well, what other technologies were you high on during 2012? I mean, we did. I'd like you to say a little bit about our friends over at Intelligentry. Now, I don't want to say any. Whoops. Well, we'll have to get to that after this first break. Well, that happens in this venue. We do have to take a little break for the support of the program, so please do stand by. We'll be back right after these messages. All righty, I appreciate you being patient with us during that break. I hope everybody had an opportunity to refresh their lemonade and have made it back all safe and sound. But just before we headed out for the break, I was kind of holding Sterling's feet to the fire over one exotic alternative energy project that I think both of us were probably guilty of being on the bandwagon for and supporting and perhaps even promoting to some degree. And then, of course, late in the year, we started having our reservations. So, Sterling, what can you say about our friends at Intelligentry without calling any names? I don't want to get into a name game battle with those fellas, but I do want to report the truth honestly as best I possibly can. What can we say about our friends at Intelligentry?
Well, that was definitely one of the leading stories all year long. And it was about August that I changed my tune on them and started blowing the whistle. And I had a pretty close not an inside seat, but I had a pretty good front row seat on that one. And one of the reasons why I think you and I bought into it was our general belief in the concept of a noble gas engine. The idea that you could have these inert gases going into a plasma state, providing propulsive power going out of the plasma state and then repeating the cycle to drive a piston. And there have been a number of people who have been pursuing the technology, some interesting history behind it, patents behind it. So there's good reason to believe that the science, even now, even with Intelligentry turning out, in my opinion, to be based on a lie, the technology is very promising, and I still anticipate that somebody will be at some point bringing this to market in a very reasonable manner. It could be a year out, it could be 6 months, it could be 6 years. We'll see. But Intelligentry claimed that their device would be the same, would be cheaper than an engine it would be replacing, and that the fuel cost would be negligible, almost zero. You're talking $30 for a canister that would run a 5 kilowatt generator for 6 months continuous, kind of thing. And the thing is, the reason John Rotor keeps getting people coming to drink his Kool-Aid is he tells a story about, he makes it sound like he's had these engines running in the past and even now running at discrete confidential locations that he can't disclose, and that it actually serves him well to have low credibility because it kind of keeps things in a manageable level, because if people really believed in what he had, they wouldn't be able to handle the crowd that would want one.
And then again, he also showed us pictures of engines that had been built. He showed us a shop full of them. I mean, for all practical purposes, it looked like he had a freaking assembly line going. I mean, he had like a half a dozen of those things sitting in his shop that looked like they were stamped out cookie cutter style. I mean,
and what was my turning point?
I was salivating. I was looking at that saying, hot dog, this guy's actually building these things. I may be able to pick one of these things up off the end cap at Walmart here pretty soon, and then to be disappointed.
Yeah, and that was my turning point, was to sit down and talk with some of his manufacturers and to hear their story about what they're putting up with John Rotor. And John Rotor, to his credit, actually gave me the contact name and numbers for a number of his manufacturers, and I followed up and tried to contact them and was able to talk to several of them. And we're talking, basically having to deal with plans that were drawn on napkins on the scale of this, on the spectrum of good plans versus not ready to go plans. And they basically had to tweak them, and then they're supposed to be showing up with these engines, and all he does is he slaps on this and that and his electrical stuff, and it gets it to run. And one time after another, they would get it done, they would show up with it, and he would fall flat on his face in terms of doing what he said. He said, "Oh, you didn't do this right, you got to get that right." And he would put it back on them and blame them when he in the first place, he was giving them really bad designs, and he comes across like he's all that. He knows he's this great scientist and has talking to top level engineers, and he's got it all figured out. So he basically plays the he wants his colleagues to put their tail between their legs, and if you question his science, then you might be out of the gig. And all this time that you've invested into this so far, and you want this to be true, you're going to be kicked out on the street. You don't want that to happen. So you basically bite your tongue and just go along with it. And he was able to keep them, and some of them are still in the game, still trying to make this thing work. One guy camped out for a whole month in Vegas, where Intelligentry is situated, to try and get his engine running, to no joy, no effect. Couldn't get it running.
Well, I don't want to make this the Intelligentry show. So I would say, in 30 seconds or less, give us a quick summary statement. Let's move on to some other items, because frankly, there was a lot of interesting stuff going on in the exotic alternative energy world during 2012, and we've got a number of others to discuss. So 30 more seconds on Intelligentry, and then let's move on.
Well, their big splash was supposed to be, the cannonball splash was supposed to happen at the PowerGen conference, December 11th through 13th, I think, down in Orlando. They were supposed to show this thing running once and for all and put all the skeptics to rest and prove themselves, vindicate them, take orders and have manufacturers ready to roll these things out. Fell flat on their face on that one.
All right, you know what I'm hearing in the background, don't you? That's that darn bumper music. Folks, we're moving off into another brief commercial break. Please do hang with us during the pause. We'll be right back after these important and blatantly commercial messages. Well, before we engage in our next segment, I do want to thank all the fine advertisers who help support this broadcast. I realize some of you out there are fussing about having to take the commercial breaks, but I'll tell you, without those sponsors, this broadcast would not exist. So I hope you think seriously about supporting them. In any case, Sterling, I think we got everything on the table about our disappointment over Intelligentry. Now I'd like to talk about some of the other hot prospects that we were hopeful about in 2012. Let's not keep beating a dead horse. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, unless the fellows over at Intelligentry can show me a running motor, I'm done with them.
Right. Well, the most popular story in 2012 I have has been the LNR technologies, another word for cold fusion. But cold fusion is probably not the best word for it, because it's not, most likely not fusion. It's transmutation, which is a nuclear process, but it's not the combining of two elements into a new element. It's the transformation of one element into something neighboring it on the chart. And it does give awful lot of energy. And the reason it's called low energy is because it doesn't take a lot of energy to get it there, compared to what we typically see in the sun, for example. Takes hundreds of millions of degrees Celsius to smash those atoms together to get them into something new. Anyway, there are a number of technology companies that are pursuing cold fusion or LNR, and in process of taking it to market. ECAT being the leader, at least publicly. There are some other companies behind the scenes that may catch up and get ahead and getting into the marketplace. We also tracked Defcalion, originally in Greece. They moved to Vancouver, and right about now, as in today, tomorrow-ish, there should be up and running. It takes a lot to move, and a week ago they were about a week away from being up and running again in Vancouver, because Greece is not a good place for people to invest. They just were having a hard time getting the money they needed.
Yeah, I wonder why. Yeah, well, I leave it to the leader of this tribe, Charlie McGrath. He focuses in on the financial aspects. But I guess if I was trying to promote a product in a manufacturing facility and so forth in Greece right now, chances are it would be having some trials and tribulations. So they figured Canada was a little better bet to launch their enterprise, eh?
Well, when I was flying in there last February to go check them out, they were going up in flames, and I didn't even know about it until I was reading an email about an hour away from the airport in Athens, and I read about all these, they're having this unrest, they're burning down buildings, and I'm going, oh wow, this ought to be fun. So anyway, yeah, a lot of crazy stuff going on in Greece.
I've also heard that there are a number of fellows working on technology that is related to LENR, but they're kind of coming in under the radar. They're not really, visible. They're not out there in the public eye right now. And we got this one guy, Rossi, who is right out there leading the charge and claims to have actually sold product, which would, that's definitely, high marks for me anyway. But we don't really know of anyone who might actually have a commercial LENR product. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, Andy Rossi is the closest, from what we know, to having a product for consumers of the business.
See, it makes me wonder if
home.
maybe one of these guys who's flying under the radar might actually be a little closer to having a consumer type product, and we just haven't heard about it because they are under the radar.
Yeah. And I wouldn't be surprised if in 2013 we could see one of those sleepers, so to speak, show up on the scene and surprise us all. That would be awesome. We'd all love that. And I bet you even Andre Rossi would appreciate that because it helped divert some of the attention away from him, give him some breathing room.
Now, one of the technologies that we've had a lot of reports on, but again, it seems I love these software companies that talk about the new products they're going to release and it turns into vaporware. What about Kesh? Can you tell us anything about Keshi? Because there are a lot of people drinking that Kool-Aid, and there's some interesting stuff coming out of that group as far as talk is concerned. But have we really seen anything?
Yeah, Kesh is is similar to, in my report at the end of the year, I predicted that Kesh will go the same way as Intelligentry, just about 6 months behind. That he's telling a lot of stories without a lot of substantiation to back his stories, and could be a storyteller. One of his redeeming graces is that he does have a healing technology that a lot of people swear by.
I have seen testimonials from satisfied customers on that one. If you're talking about an MD, a doctor of medicine, about all he is trained in is prescribing pharmaceuticals. So getting an MD to come out and say, oh yeah, this is cool technology, would probably not be a reasonable expectation. But I have heard from people who have been treated with Kesh's medical technology that say it works. I mean, is that a pretty good summary of what you've seen and heard?
It is, and what happens is people then extrapolate. If he's correct there, then maybe we can trust him on this other stuff too.
But as far as Iranian flying saucers, there's been no definite proof that they exist.
And if anything, there was a claim that they've got flying saucers. They even put something out in their own press that they've got flying saucers, and Kesh came along and said, that's my technology, I'm helping them with it. But this is the year he gets to redeem himself. He was supposed to release product in December, the 5 kilowatt systems that he had taken pre-orders for. That was postponed due to there was apparently some kind of a nuclear component in there, and they weren't going to be able to ship that without having some problems with governments intercepting it. So they've modified the design to take that out, and they're expecting to go out, I think in March or so. So we'll see if they keep postponing. That, of course, is a huge red flag, but there can be legitimate reasons to postpone, and so they've taking one postponement card out of the deck. You only get one get out of jail free card, so to speak. So we'll see if they can pull out of that one. But
About a minute from the break here. Any wrap up on Kesh and perhaps a teaser on another product before we move into the break, and we'll
well, his
summarize everything.
technology is supposed to enable people to go to the stars and have all the things you need for space travel: food, water, propulsion, electricity, health, anything you would need for a space mission. Their plasma technology covers it. And so it's got people really curious. And, he's got a building, he's got a bunch of volunteers, but there's also some disgruntled people. So the early part of 2013 will be kind of a S or get off the pot. You can fill in the S for me.
Us Southern boys aren't afraid of such language, but but in any case, before we trail off into this break, give us a little teaser about what you'd like to talk about in our final segment.
Well, there's some other leading stories that we covered, and you're just going to have to wait to find out what those were, including an amphibious vehicle that will travel indefinitely without stopping for fuel.
Whoa, all right, folks. Now you got the teaser. You're going to have to hang with us until after this short break. So please do stand by, and we'll have our last segment with Sterling Allen for tonight. We'll be right back after these messages. Well, I'll tell you, one of the things about this venue is it seems like you just get in the middle of a good discussion and they start playing that darn bumper music at you, telling you got to take a commercial break. But again, as I mentioned earlier, without the support of those advertisers, there would be no broadcast. So, it's how it has to be. In any case, Sterling, we set them up with a good teaser, and you're going to talk about a flying, driving, submarining.
Not flying yet.
It doesn't fly yet. Oh, doggone it! He needs to talk to Kesh.
but it does. This is an amphibious vehicle with tracks on it. You can drive it into the water, and then use it for exploring the waters, and then drive back out when you're done.
Well, I'll
He's
tell you,
got a catamaran that can lift this thing up and out in and out of the water.
In this last segment, I'm going to give you full screen and try very hard to keep my mouth shut and let you. We got about 10 minutes here to get as much out there as you can possibly get. So Sterling, please take the next 10 minutes, but spend at least a couple telling me about this flying, submarining, driving gizmo that never needs a fill up at the gas tank.
Yeah. It's a company over in the UK. It's MLV Explorer is the name of the device, and it's powered by what he calls the quantum. No, it's I can't remember. Anyway, we got a really good relationship going on there. He really liked the questions that I asked him. He's used to the mainstream media when they covered it, and this did make it into the mainstream media. We're one, they call it perpetual motion, and I know better than that. Energy's coming from somewhere. And so because I've been thinking along these lines for so long, and I've done a lot of interviews, I know the kind of questions to ask. And he basically said, I like your questions, and when we make our developments, we're going to go to you first to make our announcements. But can you imagine a vehicle that will drive indefinitely without ever stopping for fuel? And that is what he claims to have. And they finished their in-house testing a couple of weeks ago. Thumbs up. Their next step is university testing, where they will be having a university not looking at the technology because it's proprietary, but they will observe the vehicle that it powers in operation for much longer than any conventional technology could have possibly run it. So like 5 to 10 times more than what you could possibly hide a battery or some other energy storage mechanism in this contraption. And once that's done, this thing is going to be ready for sale as an SELL, not SAL, not as a sailboat because this is a watercraft. But it's going to be for sale either late January or early February, where you can actually buy one. And this thing will travel indefinitely. Now, here's the catch. This guy, not the catch, the interesting part of it.
Now, you know what I usually say when something sounds too good to be true, Sterling? I mean, let's take it one step further. If this guy's got a watercraft that'll go, indefinitely, why not my Toyota Camry?
Yeah. So obviously there are a myriad of other applications that will be licensed out for this technology, and that's what this year will entail. So it'll be a month or less before we get validation on this thing. That's very exciting. And there's another technology that's going to be university tested this month, starting this month for 30 days. We've all heard of the magnet motor claim, where magnets repel, attract magnets to create rotary motion. And supposedly magnets are conservation of energy. You don't get any more out than what you put in.
Eventually magnets, if they are placed in motion, eventually without any additional energy put in, they will reach equilibrium, where all the magnetic fields are in equilibrium, and motion will cease. That is what science tells you will happen with a spinning magnetic field.
So people that pursue magnet motors say not so. We can put these magnets together in such a way that they will create excess kinetic energy that we can then hook up to a generator and power stuff with. For example, there's a guy in South America who claims to have powered his house for 3.5 years continuous with one of these things. Full power, meaning he's not hooked up to the grid other than to keep a light bulb going, to keep the power company happy that he's buying stuff from them. Otherwise, they'll come and shut his house down, the way the laws are there where he lives. So he keeps one light bulb plugged in on the grid. Everything else is powered off his device. Anyway, this company called the Yildiz Magnet Motor over in Turkey, they want to be vindicated once and for all. And so they're going to a university. They had conversations with them yesterday, Sunday. And this was actually a story that came up at the end of last year. So this is still part of our recap of 2012, the highlights of 2012. Anyway, they're going to be vindicated with a 30-day test at a university, and 12 or 24 hours would be more than enough to prove this thing. And they're going 30 days. They're going to test the heck out of this thing, turn it up, turn it down, turn it off, turn it on, with observers, scientific peer review, so to speak. They're inviting scientists from other institutions to participate in the design of the test, the collection of the data, the conclusions and discussion of the paper that will be produced coming from this. And this will change the course of history. We'll finally vindicate magnet motors if this thing comes through, and they are totally set on doing this. So big things coming on that one. And then one of the coolest things that happened in 2012, there's a group of people that were excited about the cold fusion Gilanis cell that was demonstrated at the NI Week in Austin, Texas. That's National Instruments Week. Huge company, builds instruments for colleges and whatnot. Anyway, they had their annual conference, and at that conference for 4 days continuous, Francesco Celani demonstrated a cold fusion device producing more power than what it consumed, as measured by a National Instruments instrument. And then they did the same thing at a cold fusion conference in Korea the following week. So these guys said, let's replicate this, make a kit, and make it available for universities. And they are close to getting that replication done. And next step will be to make the kit. So that's very exciting.
One of the things about Gilanis' experiment, again, I don't have any first-hand information, but from what I've read, he's one of the first who has been able to reliably throw a switch and this thing produces the expected effect first time, every time. He basically grabbed his gizmo off his bench at wherever it was he had it set up, packed it up, shipped it over to Korea, set it up for demonstration in Korea, threw the switch, and the damn thing worked. So, I mean, he seems to have gotten some of the unknowns unraveled and can reliably produce what for many has been kind of a sporadic effect. Gee, they see it one day and then the next day it doesn't work. Is that your understanding of what you've heard and seen on this Gilanis device?
That's a major breakthrough from an academic point of view, because it's the reproducibility of an effect and the reliability of it that it works on demand and repeatably. That's what these guys are going to accomplish with this kit. They will be able to sell this kit, distribute it around the planet, and universities around the world will replicate and finally give a thumbs up to cold fusion that they've been giving to all these years.
Okay, and so much for Gilanis. What else happened in 2012? Or, well, let's see. We've got about 2 minutes. Do you think it's time to look into our crystal ball and decide, what technologies we should be keeping an eye on during 2013? Shall we step out onto the plank and see if Captain Hook, stabs us in the back and pushes us off the plank?
One that we've not mentioned yet, that I have in #1 position in our top 5, that I expect to be to market first, is actually that one that we just talked about. The amphibious generator is in this classification where you have a self-looped motor generator system. And the reason it works is not because it's perpetual motion, but because you get this phase angle stuff going on that sets up some kind of harmonic with the environment that invites the energy from the ambient, that hence the excess energy that shows up in the system. And I expect to see several of those vindicated. In fact, I've got a story I'm working on right now. I was hoping to have in our news today. Another guy is showing up with one of these. We've got about 10 of them, independent groups with the same effect on that page. So keep an eye on that one.
Now, don't leave me hanging.
Well,
we got another 45 seconds to fill.
Okay. Another one that will be fun to watch is this one we just threw up last week. This is more along the drama line of things. A company in Singapore claims a heat technology that harnesses environmental heat. Pretty shady in a lot of their claims, and so we're still kind of checking this thing out. I immediately put them into position #3, and then it was shouted out down on that one. So they had good reasons to. So we've
now, Sterling,
given that one a second
bow
look.
to criticism.
Most of the time I don't, but when they make good points, I do.
Yes, that is indeed true. So the hottest item for 2013, what do you think is the most likely to succeed in 2013? What do you think?
Self-looped motor generator systems.
You're really going to step out on that plank.
Yep.
All right. Well, Sterling Allen, thank you so much for being my guest on my very first production for 2013. Always a pleasure to talk to Sterling. And for those of you who might like to catch some of Sterling's material, he publishes regularly at pesn.com. He has a number of other sites associated, but that is his principal site, pesn.com. Check it out. Some interesting material there. I want to thank everybody for sitting through the show, and Charlie McGrath will be along to do the second hour, so please do hang in there. We'll be back after these messages.